The taiga winds howled through the tall spruce trees, rustling pine needles and carrying the scent of snow and smoke. Nestled between a frozen river and the steep edge of the Frostclaw Mountains lay the small village of Karselmere, a quiet place, half buried in snow, where time seemed to move slower than the rest of the Overworld. Cobblestone paths connected the squat wooden homes, and lanterns hung from logs, casting warm pools of orange light that flickered against the dark. Snow golems waddled clumsily through the square. Most villagers kept to their routines, mending fences, feeding sheep, gathering berries. But one soul burned with restless energy: Ellie. While other villagers feared the night, Ellie welcomed it. He was different, born to a family of farmers, but drawn to adventure. His home, a modest spruce cabin by the river, was packed with chests full of cobblestone, strange ores, potion ingredients, and tools in various stages of wear. Maps covered one entire wall, scribbled with hand-drawn markers and notes like "cave" or "odd ruins here." He wandered far beyond the village's borders. He climbed every crag and spelunked into every cave he could find, often returning bruised and half-starved, but grinning. The elders muttered that he was touched by madness. One winter morning, Ellie stood by the well, sharpening his iron sword while the butcher stacked pork chops nearby. "You're off again?" the butcher asked, watching his breath rise in the cold air. "It's dangerous out there, lad. Creepers took old Jaren just last moon." Ellie shrugged. "The caves call to me. There's something down there, something more. I can feel it." The butcher raised an eyebrow. "You'll feel the cold of death if you keep going off alone. No one comes back from the deep." Ellie gave a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Then maybe it's time someone did." That afternoon, while exploring a ravine a few hundred blocks west of Karselmere, Ellie stumbled upon something strange. A broken stone staircase hidden beneath vines, leading into a tunnel of mossy cobblestone. The air was unnaturally still. His torchlight flickered. Every step he took echoed in the silence. The tunnel wound downward, the air growing colder, darker. At the bottom lay a massive stone room, archways, crumbling pillars, walls covered in cracked brick. At the center of it all was a rectangular frame, half buried in the floor, covered in dust and missing glowing eyes. Ellie knelt beside it, heart pounding. A portal frame, an end portal. He reached out to brush the dust off a carved stone nearby and found a line of script in enchanting table runes. He squinted. "When the last eye is placed, the end shall wake." Eli sat at the edge of the stone chamber for hours, torchlight dimming as he stared at the portal frame. His fingers traced the cold obsidian edges, mind racing. The legends whispered by old villagers. The end, a place beyond comprehension, ruled by dragons and void. Was it true? He sketched a rough map of the stronghold in his journal and marked the coordinates. "I'll need ender pearls, blaze powder," he muttered. 12 eyes, 12 chances to make history. Returning to Karselmere, Eli rushed into the village library, startling the sleepy librarian Marla. "Blazes," he said, dropping his journal on her desk. "How do I find them?" Marla adjusted her spectacles and squinted at the sketches. "Blazes? You're talking nether creatures. Dangerous. Why?" Eli hesitated. Then, with a deep breath, he opened the journal to a drawing of the portal frame. "I found this, in a ruin west of here. I think it's an end portal." Marla stared in stunned silence. "By the builder's flame, you're serious." She pulled an old tome from the shelf. "Blazes spawn in nether fortresses. You'll need a flint and steel, obsidian, 10 blocks minimum, and courage." Eli smiled. "I've got all three." That night, he dug into his cobblestone reserves and began building the nether portal behind his cabin. With 10 blocks of obsidian and a strike of flint and steel, the swirling purple vortex opened. Eli stepped through. The nether was unlike anything he'd imagined. Heat and sulfur filled the air, the red stone terrain twisting into impossible shapes. Ghasts floated in the sky like ghostly jellyfish, wailing. Eli ran from lava lakes, built bridges over fire, and avoided piglins until he finally found it, a fortress of black brick looming like a shadowed monolith. Inside, the blazes waited. He battled through waves of them, using snowballs, water buckets, and his enchanted bow. Burned and coughing, he emerged with a handful of blaze rods. "Enough for powder," he whispered, victorious. Back in the overworld, he combined the powder with pearls, gathered painfully from Endermen in moonlit fields, and crafted the first glowing eye. He held it up to the sky. 11 more to go. The next eye was far harder. Eli had cleared the nearby forests of Endermen, and the remaining ones grew elusive. They vanished at sunrise, slipping into shadows before he could strike. Days passed, then weeks. Eli began camping in the wilderness, far from the safety of Karselmere. One evening, Marla found him by the river, wrapping his wounds. His eye was swollen from a skeleton's arrow, and his leggings were torn.
"Eli," she said gently, "you need to rest. You look like a drowned zombie."
"There's no time," he groaned, tossing a healing potion back. "I need those pearls. The end won't wait."
Marla sighed and handed him a fresh book. "I've been researching. There are ruins, ancient watchtowers deep in the birch forests, said to be cursed. Some believe Endermen are drawn to them." The next morning, Eli ventured south into the birch woods. The trees stretched tall and pale, whispering as the wind passed through. Eventually, he found one, an obsidian tower rising from the moss, surrounded by strange purple flowers and broken banners. Night fell quickly, and the shadows stirred. They came, not one but 5 Endermen, silent and tall, their glowing eyes locked on Eli the moment he dared to look. The battle was fierce. He ducked and rolled, sword flashing, blocks flying, as he used the terrain to his advantage. One by one they fell. By sunrise he stood triumphant, 3 new pearls in hand. 9 more, he said, exhausted. Back in the village, things were changing. Word of his discovery had spread. Travelers arrived, some curious, others seeking to exploit it. A pair of cloaked men asked strange questions. Marla warned Eli to keep the portal's location secret, but it was too late. One night his cabin was broken into. His chest of supplies, blaze rods, pearls, notes, was ransacked. But the thief made a mistake. They left a trail. Eli tracked them north through the tundra and caught them outside an old ice cave. They wore black armor, mercenaries, hired hands. "You're too late," one sneered, drawing a crossbow. "The eye will be ours." Eli fought like a man possessed, 2 against 1, and still he won. Bloodied but victorious, he recovered his stolen items, and something else. A map he hadn't drawn, with a red X near his stronghold. Someone else wanted the end. The snow crunched beneath Eli's boots as he stared down at the stolen map. The ink was fresh, the parchment stolen from Karselmere's archives. Whoever had hired those mercenaries knew about the stronghold, knew what it held. Eli tucked the map into his cloak and returned home. His cabin was a mess, books scattered, storage chests overturned. His rare enchanted diamond sword, Void Piercer, was missing. Fury burned in his chest, but he forced himself calm. Revenge would come. He doubled his efforts. Night after night he hunted Endermen in the far tundra where the moon shone bright and mobs were plentiful. Sometimes he brought back pearls, sometimes only bruises. At Marla's urging, he began recruiting help. He taught Fletcher Joran how to fire spectral arrows. He gave the stonemason obsidian to build a backup shelter. He even trained a stray wolf and named it Ember. Karselmere began to change. One morning, as frost covered the crops, Eli met Marla outside the library. "I think it's time," he said, voice low. "I have 10 eyes. We place them soon." Marla handed him a wrapped bundle. "I found this in an old tome, a relic. It might help." Inside was an amulet of binding, an artifact said to reveal disguised threats. Eli nodded his thanks and hung it around his neck. That night, the village burned. Eli woke to screams. Orange light flickered through his windows. The cloaked men had returned with more. Dozens, pillagers, mercenaries, and something worse, a robed figure with glowing red eyes, riding a black horse with smoke trailing from its mane. Eli and Ember leapt into action. Arrows rained from the rooftops as Fletcher's men held the walls. The black-cloaked attackers moved with eerie precision, bypassing defenses like they knew the layout. Eli found the red-eyed leader near the well. Their blades met with a clash of sparks. "You cannot stop the awakening," the figure hissed. "The end belongs to us now." They fought hard, but the stranger vanished in a puff of black mist before the final blow. By sunrise, the village lay in ruin. Half the buildings burned. 3 villagers were lost. Ember was wounded. But the portal location remained safe, untouched. Eli stood among the ashes. "We finish this. Tomorrow, we activate the portal." Dawn broke over a wounded Karselmere. Smoke still curled from charred rooftops, but the villagers moved with grim purpose. Eli stood at the village center, his armor freshly polished, a crate of eyes of Ender at his feet. Marla, Fletcher, and a few of the bravest gathered around. "We strike at dusk," Eli said. "We complete the portal, and we face whatever waits beyond it. This world isn't safe while the end threatens it." Fletcher nodded. "We'll hold the surface. If they return, we'll be ready." Eli clasped his hand. "Thank you for everything." With Ember at his side and Marla holding a book of ancient incantations, they set out west, following the winding path to the ravine. The forest seemed to hold its breath as they passed. By twilight, they reached the stone staircase. The descent into the stronghold felt heavier this time. Each footstep echoed like a drumbeat. 13 steps down, past forgotten cells and iron gates, they reached the portal chamber. Eli unpacked the eyes, cradling one between gloved hands. "It's time." One by one, he placed the eyes into the frame. Each clicked into place with a flash of light and a hum of power. When the 12th eye settled, the portal activated. A swirling, starless vortex opened. Wind howled through the chamber. Ember growled low, fur standing on end. Marla stepped forward, voice shaking. "You don't have to do this alone." "I do." Eli said, gripping Voidpiercer, recently recovered from the ruins of the mercenary camp. "If I don't return, seal the chamber. Don't let them follow." He turned to Ember. "Stay. Protect her." The wolf whined, but obeyed. Without another word, Eli leapt into the portal. The end was blackness, a floating island of obsidian. Towers loomed in the distance, each topped with a glowing crystal. Shadows twisted in the void. Endermen watched silently. Then came the roar. The Ender Dragon. It swooped from the darkness, wings stretching the horizon. Eli ran, building a tower of cobblestone beneath one of the crystals. He shot it with a spectral arrow. The crystal exploded. One down. He raced to the next, dodging dragon breath, using water buckets to break his falls. Each crystal destroyed weakened the beast, but then the sky shimmered. The red-eyed figure stepped through the portal behind him. "You thought you'd be alone?" the figure hissed, drawing a black-bladed sword. Eli narrowed his eyes. "I was counting on it." They clashed beneath the obsidian spires as the Ender Dragon circled above. The end pulsed with chaotic energy as the dragon screamed through the void sky. Eli's blade clanged against the red-eyed figure's black one, sparks cascading as obsidian cracked beneath their feet. The enemy moved with unnatural speed, teleporting short distances like the Endermen that watched silently from the shadows. Every time Eli swung, the figure blurred away. It was a dance of blades, fast, brutal, silent but for the screeching winds and the roar of the circling dragon. Above them, the last of the end crystals glowed, pulsing with violet energy. Eli broke from the duel and sprinted to the tallest obsidian tower. He built quickly, his hands moving by instinct. An arrow from below whizzed past his head. The red-eyed assassin wasn't far behind. He reached the top, took aim, and fired. The final crystal burst with a deafening crack. The Ender Dragon shrieked. Its flight turned erratic. Eli
jumped, falling through the void air, landing hard on a water puddle he'd placed earlier. Pain lanced through his legs, but he rolled to his feet. He had one shot. The dragon dove. Eli raced to the central circle, where the portal would eventually appear. As the dragon passed low, he leapt, sword raised high. Voidpiercer flashed, and he drove it deep into the beast's neck. The end exploded in light. The dragon's cry echoed into silence. Its massive form began to disintegrate, light particles rising into the dark. The red-eyed figure screamed, not in pain, but fury. No. It was supposed to be mine. The Enderman turned to face him. The figure took one step back. Then another. The amulet of binding around Eli's neck shimmered, and the disguise dropped. The figure's features twisted and cracked like glass, revealing a hollow-eyed husk of an ancient illager, eyes swirling with void. The Enderman descended on him without mercy. Eli stumbled back, gripping his sword, breath heavy. A beam of light formed in the center of the island, the portal home. He walked toward it, Endermen parting like shadows. Before he stepped through, he looked up at the silent sky and whispered, "It's over." But something in the void whispered back. Eli emerged into the overworld beneath a dawn sky streaked with pink and gold. The air felt different, sharper, heavier. The grass beneath his boots shimmered faintly as if touched by the end. Marla stood waiting by the ravine, Ember at her side. When she saw him, relief bloomed in her eyes. "You did it," she said, voice thick with emotion. Eli nodded slowly. "The dragon is gone. The portal's closed." Marla stepped forward and hugged him. We were starting to lose hope. But Eli's expression stayed grim. "It's not over." Something followed me back. That night, Karselmere held a quiet celebration. Banners flew. Villagers shared stew and songs around great bonfires. Children ran through the square with wooden swords, shouting, "Dragon Slayer." But Eli sat alone by the well, eyes on the sky. He could feel it, eyes watching. The amulet of binding pulsed faintly against his chest. Marla joined him. "You haven't smiled once. I heard it. Right before I left. A whisper in the dark." He turned toward her. "Something older than the dragon. Older than the end." She frowned. "You think it's still out there?" "I think it never left." In the days that followed, strange things began happening. The sun would linger too long on the horizon. Shadows stretched at odd angles. Villagers reported seeing black shapes flickering at the edges of their vision. One morning, the stonemason vanished. His tools lay scattered beside his unfinished wall. No signs of struggle. Just a trail of footprints that ended in the middle of the road. Then the dreams began. Eli woke nightly in a cold sweat, images of an obsidian city rising from the void etched into his thoughts. He began drawing symbols in his sleep, strange, curved runes he didn't recognize. Marla, concerned, brought in a scholar from the icebound monastery. The man examined Eli's notes and went pale. "These are pre-overworld glyphs," he whispered. "From before the sky and land split. Forbidden markings. Eldritch." Eli leaned forward. "What do they mean?" The scholar hesitated. "A gate. Something buried. Sealed, but watching." Eli closed the book. "Then it's time we found it." The scholar's warning echoed in Eli's mind long after the man had returned to his frosty monastery. A gate, sealed, watching. For days, Eli pored over ancient texts with Marla. Every map, every rune, every hint of the old world, nothing was too small to examine. The obsidian city from his dreams called to him like a beacon in the dark. Then, on the third night, Ember barked at something beneath the floorboards. Eli pried them up, revealing a hidden compartment in his cabin's foundation. A map. One older than any he'd seen, drawn on hide instead of paper, marked with symbols matching the glyphs from his dreams. It showed the Frostclaw Mountains, and beneath them, a spiral. A spiral that descended deep below the bedrock layer. Impossible. And yet. The next morning, Eli, Marla, and Ember packed supplies and set out. Fletcher stayed behind to guard Karselmere, which remained under the growing shadow of unseen watchers. Their journey took them high into the crags, where snow fell like ash and the wind howled like phantoms. Days passed. Then, tucked behind a waterfall, they found a cave. Within it, a spiral staircase made of bedrock and obsidian. No tool could mine bedrock. No person could have carved it. "This is it," Eli whispered. They descended. The further they went, the more twisted the stone became. Blocks pulsed faintly. The air grew heavier, until breathing felt like inhaling liquid shadow. Ember whimpered, but followed. After hours of descent, they reached a circular chamber. In the center stood a massive door, taller than a golem, etched with runes that shimmered faintly when Eli stepped close. The amulet of binding glowed. Marla touched the door. "These runes, they speak of a prison. Something cast out before the first sunrise." Eli pressed his hand to the center rune. With a groan like a dying world, the door opened. Behind it was a stairwell leading down into silence, and a breath of air so cold it burned. They stepped through. The stairwell was unlike anything Eli had seen. It descended at impossible angles, the geometry warping in a way that defied logic. Marla's torch sputtered, the flame shrinking as if afraid. Ember's ears pinned back, her growls low and constant. The air shimmered with invisible pressure. Echoes whispered in languages no tongue had spoken in millennia. At the base of the steps, they found a temple. A black monolith of architecture, rising into a cavern with no visible ceiling. Ancient banners hung in tatters. Obsidian columns, inscribed with the same glyphs from Eli's dreams, rose around an altar made of crying obsidian and void stone. "Welcome," said a voice. It was not loud, yet it filled the air like thunder. Eli turned, weapon drawn, but no one was there. "You've come far, End Slayer," the voice continued. "But you know not what you awaken." A figure emerged from the shadows. Not a person. Not anymore. It wore remnants of an ancient crown, skin stretched thin like parchment, glowing softly with inner corruption. Its eyes were twin voids. The amulet around Eli's neck blazed. "Who are you?" Eli demanded. The being smiled, a motion more chilling than kind. "I am the warden of the Forgotten Gate. I was left behind to seal it, until fools like you remembered." Marla raised her torch, but it flickered out. Darkness fell. The warden vanished. Suddenly the glyphs on the walls began to pulse, first red, then violet. The altar split open, revealing stairs leading even deeper. Eli stepped forward. "We finished this." They descended again. Below the altar was a chamber more ancient than time itself. An obsidian city sprawled in all directions, built into the stone. No mob stirred. No sound echoed. In the center was a black tower, rising toward nothingness. And above it all, a gate of pure void. It pulsed like a heartbeat. The black tower's base was surrounded by shattered stone and strange, half-melted statues. Eli ran his hand along one, a villager frozen mid-scream, his face twisted in horror. The stone was warm. Ember growled again. The closer they came to the gate, the more agitated she became. Marla flipped through her book, reading by the dim violet pulses of the void above them. "These glyphs say the gate was carved from the first obsidian ever cooled, before dimensions were separate," she whispered. "It's not a portal. It's a wound." "A wound?" Eli asked. She nodded. "A tear in reality. Sealed by the first builders with blood and flame." The air thrummed louder, each pulse resonating in Eli's bones. At the tower's summit, they found a dais. On it sat a pedestal, and upon that, a stone resembling an eye of Ender, but black, with swirling purple cracks. Eli reached toward it. "Don't," Marla said, voice sharp. "That's not an eye. That's a heart. The heart of the gate. It's calling to me," Eli whispered. "Like the portal did." Suddenly, the warden appeared behind them, more solid than before. Its voice thundered, "Do not touch it. To awaken the heart is to unchain the bound one." "Who is the bound one?" Eli asked. "The one who made the end. Who commands the dark between stars. You killed its dragon. Now it stirs." The heart pulsed, once, twice, then cracked. Darkness spilled forth, not like shadow, but like the absence of all light, sound, and thought. A shape moved within the void. Tentacles of pure night. Eyes that opened where none should exist. Ember barked and lunged. Marla cried out. Eli grabbed the heart. And the world split. Eli fell through nothingness. The void swallowed thought, sensation, even fear. He drifted in a realm without direction, weight, or time. Around him, stars blinked in and out like dying embers. Shapes moved, vast, slow, unknowable. When he landed, he didn't feel impact, just pressure. The world rebuilt itself around him. He stood atop a floating island of obsidian and end stone, hanging in an endless ocean of starlit fog. Above, monolithic structures floated in orbit. The sky pulsed with colorless lightning. Marla appeared beside him with Ember. They looked stunned, blinking at the shifting horizon. This isn't the end," Marla whispered. "No," Eli said. "It's something else. Something before." The heart of the gate hovered nearby, pulsing with dark energy. Ribbons of void tethered it to the air. Far ahead, they saw a spire. Black and jagged, reaching into an inverted vortex. The bound one is waking, Marla said. We're inside the rift. Creatures began to appear, shadowborn horrors with eyes of shifting light. Some were humanoid. Others, less so. They didn't attack, but they watched, heads tilting. Why aren't they attacking? Eli asked. Marla touched the amulet of binding around his neck. Because it marks you. You carry the key. A path of floating stone blocks formed, leading toward the spire. Eli stepped onto the first one. The ground behind them began to fall away. We don't have a choice, he said. Together, they crossed the floating path, battling visions of their pasts, echoes twisted by the rift. Eli faced his own reflection, rotted and whispering lies. Marla was pulled into memories of loss. Ember snapped at invisible enemies. At last, they reached the spire. Inside, the walls were alive, rippling like breathing flesh. At its core, a massive crystal pulsed with chaotic energy. Above it, curled in slumber, was a colossal form. Wings of void. Eyes that blinked across its body. The bound one. And it was waking. The tower pulsed with power, each heartbeat a tremor through the rift. The bound one stirred atop the throne of shattered stars, its many eyes flickering open in slow succession. One turned to Marla. Another to Ember. Most turned to Eli. Eli stepped forward, sword drawn. You don't belong here. The bound one's voice was not a sound but a thought, an idea poured directly into their minds. You do not belong, child of crafted world. You trespass in the dark that shaped your light. Marla clutched her spellbook. We must seal it again. Before it breaches the dimensions. But the heart of the gate pulsed harder, drawing Eli's gaze. His vision blurred. He saw worlds consumed, overworlds turned inside out, mobs twisted into things without names. The bound one rose. Its full size defied measurement. Taller than mountains, yet coiled in a space that barely held it. Its wings unfurled, blotting out the false sky. Eli. Marla cried. Now. Eli lunged for the crystal at the spire's core. The amulet of binding seared against his chest, reacting violently to the ancient magic. The bound one screeched, and the rift cracked. A blinding light burst from the crystal as Eli struck it. Void energy erupted, flinging the creature backward. The entire tower shook. Marla began chanting, calling on the names of the first builders. Glyphs spiraled into the air, sealing circles forming. Eli, she screamed. We have one chance. The heart floated between them and the bound one, pulsing, shivering, breaking apart. Eli looked at Ember, at Marla, at the creature that was rising once again. Then he ran, leapt into the air, and drove Voidpiercer through the heart. The rift screamed. The rift shrieked like a dying universe. Voidpiercer pierced the heart with a soundless quake. Fractures shot across the sky, and the black spire trembled as if the bones of the world had snapped. Light and shadow clashed in the air, swirling in chaotic spirals. The bound one screamed, a sound that collapsed Marla to her knees and made Ember howl in agony. Its form lost shape, unraveling like thread pulled from an infinite skein. Eyes blinked shut. Wings folded inward. It thrashed, pulling at the edges of the rift. Eli floated midair, locked in the shattering core of the heart. Ribbons of dark energy wrapped around him, pressing into his mind. You could rule, the bound one hissed in his thoughts. With my power, you would be a god of dimensions. I don't want to rule, Eli whispered. I want peace. He gripped the hilt tighter. Voidpiercer cracked, releasing a shockwave that blasted through the tower. Marla stood, blood trickling from her ears. She resumed her chant, louder, faster, as the sealing glyphs closed tighter. The rift above them began to seal, but the energy resisted. Eli. Finish it, she screamed. The amulet of binding around his neck flared white, countering the black swirl of the rift. Ember barked once, fiercely, as if urging him on. Eli reached deep into the magic of the heart, past pain, past doubt, and poured everything he was into the blow. The heart exploded. The bound one gave a final, shattering roar. Reality folded. And everything went white. Silence. Eli opened his eyes slowly, blinking against a pale gray sky. He lay on a gentle hill of ash and pearl-dusted stone. The rift was gone. Marla sat nearby, wrapping a bandage around her wrist. Ember lay with her head on Eli's leg, tail wagging weakly. "You're awake," Marla said softly. "What happened?" Eli asked, sitting up slowly. The pain was distant, dulled, as if it belonged to someone else. "We're in the between," she replied. "The space that exists when something ancient is unmade." The rift collapsed, but we didn't. The horizon was unlike any he'd known. Shifting fragments of land drifted like clouds. Light shimmered without a sun. No mobs, no danger. Only stillness. "You destroyed the heart," Marla continued. "The bound one is gone. At least, in this world." Eli looked at the fragments of Voidpiercer lying beside him. "And the cost?" She met his gaze. "Time. Balance. There will be echoes. Scars. But we're alive." He stood, wincing. "Then let's find the way home." At the edge of the Pearl Hill stood a tree, dead and white, yet glowing faintly. Beneath its roots, a spiral of stairs descended. Eli stepped toward it. "The path back? Or forward?" Marla said. "Depends who you ask." They descended together, leaving the ashes of the rift behind. And though the light ahead was dim, it was warm. The spiral staircase beneath the pale tree descended slowly, carved from luminous stone that shimmered softly beneath their feet. The air carried the scent of silver rain and distant thunder. Eli held the broken pieces of Voidpiercer in one hand, the amulet of binding now cracked and quiet around his neck. Marla walked beside him, her spellbook tucked beneath one arm. Ember led the way, ears alert, tail sweeping slowly behind. Each step down was dreamlike, the stairwell suspended in a void filled with drifting memories, flashes of their journey. The village at the edge. The ruined stronghold. The dragon's death cry. The rift's terrible silence. Eli said quietly, "Do you think we'll know it when we reach the end?" Marla's voice was calm. "If there is an end. Maybe this is the new world now." They walked for what felt like hours. Then, without fanfare, the stairs opened onto a garden. It was unlike anything they had seen. Trees made of shimmering glass. Pools of water that reflected not the sky above, but the worlds below, Overworld, Nether, and more besides. Strange statues lined the path, each resembling a different version of Eli. A farmer, a warrior, a king, a prisoner. "This is a crossroads," Marla whispered. "A place of choosing." In the center stood a gateway, a perfect circle of obsidian framed with glowing leaves. It pulsed with quiet power. A figure waited there. Hooded, robed in shifting colors. "You've come far," it said. "And now the world waits." Eli stepped forward. "What do you mean?" "The bound one was only a shadow. The true danger lies not in what you fought, but in what you changed. Realms once sealed are open now. Time folds. Threads tangle. Can we stop it?" Marla asked. The figure pointed to the gate. "One path leads home. One leads deeper. Choose." Eli looked to Marla. She gave a quiet nod. He looked to Ember, who barked once and wagged her tail. And then, without another word, Eli stepped through. As Eli stepped through the obsidian gate, the world unraveled and reformed. He found himself in a realm of infinite doorways. Arched portals spinning slowly in space, suspended in an endless lattice of stars and strings. Each portal flickered with scenes of possible worlds. One showed villagers raising a statue of him. Another, a world on fire. A third, a reflection of himself standing alone in a desert. Marla and Ember emerged behind him. She looked around in awe. "This is the weave." Eli glanced at her. "What's that?" "The interlace of all fates. Every choice made and unmade. The point where time's threads intersect." A voice echoed through the void. Familiar. The warden. "You have stepped beyond time," it said. "You hold the power to anchor what remains. But it comes at a cost." A glowing thread stretched from Eli's chest to the heart's echo, still flickering deep in the dark. A tether. "If I anchor it, I stay," Eli whispered. "The rift stays sealed." The gate closed. Marla reached for his hand. "There has to be another way." But Ember sat silently, as if understanding. The portals shifted. One hovered before them, showing Karselmere rebuilt. Peaceful. Whole. Eli turned to Marla. "If I leave, this place unravels. If I stay, the world survive." "I can't lose you again," she said, tears in her voice. He smiled softly. "You won't." "Not really." He pressed the amulet of binding into her hand. "You'll guide them. I'll hold the threads." Then, he stepped into the center of the lattice. The threads glowed. The warden whispered a final word, "Guardian." And Eli became the anchor. Time passed, but not as it did in the overworld. Eli stood in the center of the weave, his body suspended by silver threads, his thoughts stretched across worlds. He no longer breathed or slept in the way mortals did. He listened. He watched. He became the tether that held the realms in balance. Below him, life continued. Karselmere rebuilt its walls. Marla led with wisdom and resolve, her magic tempered by memory. She wore the amulet of binding like a badge and a burden. Ember grew old and gray but never left her side. The world whispered of a legend, of the Enslayer who vanished to save them all. Songs were sung. Books written. But in the quiet places of the world, strange things still stirred. New portals began to blink into being. Realities pressed too closely together. Fractures not of evil, but of consequence. And always, Eli watched. One day, a young girl found an old, dusty sword buried in a cave, its hilt etched with stars. She would be the next. And Eli would guide her. In the center of the weave, the guardian smiled. He was never truly gone. He had become part of the world. Forever.